You dropped Kirblog on me, baby. You dropped Kirblog on me, but you turned me on, baby. And hopefully you didn't turn off the video listening to this. So this is not a topic suggested by somebody. This is one that I came up with a while ago, and I was reminded of it just the other day. Been watching this show called Gargantia. It's an anime that was recommended to me by my friend Alan Lee, who is the voice of the main character, Leto, in the English dub. And we saw a clip of it a while ago. He was showing us, like, oh, this is the show I worked on. And I saw a little bit of it, and I was like, oh, this is really cool. This looks beautiful. And so I borrowed the box set from him, and I didn't get around to watching any of the episodes until just a few days ago. But I've watched the first 4 episodes of it, and it brought up a topic that I'd kind of been mulling over for a while. I call this one, Crazy Characters Doing Normal Things. What is it about characters you love doing mundane, humanistic things that is so appealing all of a sudden? Or no, I guess not all of a sudden, but it's something that I've been picking up on a lot with stuff that I've been watching lately, and Gargantia was a great example that kind of sparked me wanting to do the topic this week. A big example, I think I might have even talked about it briefly when I was doing my Ultron Avengers 2 review, was one of the highlight scenes of that entire movie. In fact, some people even would say that it's like the best scene of the entire movie, is when the Avengers are just like hanging out, like after that party, and they're trying to pick up Thor's hammer, and they're just kidding around and everything. And I think I was talking with Xander and Bosco and some of the others after we saw it about that scene, and we're like, what is it about that we like so much? And they pointed out, well, you think we have all this, this history with all these characters from all these different movies we've been following, and getting to see them just like be normal people and just have fun and enjoy themselves is enjoyable to us. And it evokes a pleasurable feeling to just have that moment of relaxation of just like, oh, they're goofing around and they're just doing normal human things, despite one of them being a god and one of them being a mutant and one of them being this and that and super genius or assassin, whatever, etc. And I agreed with that, but at the same time, I don't think it is necessarily just because of the attachment to the characters that we already had, built up. Because I look at Gargantia, and I just started watching it again. I've only seen the first 4 episodes. I don't even know if I fully like the show or not. I've been really enjoying it so far. But from the stuff that I've seen, just to give the little basic premise of it, so it's about this alien kid. He's shaped like a human, but he's an alien, and he pilots a mech, and he's part of this like galactic alliance. And the show opens with like a big mech battle in space. It's this like really beautifully animated sequence that definitely catches your attention and draws you in to begin with. But he lands on Earth, and he meets, not knowing that it is the planet of origin originally, and he meets a bunch of these humans that are all just on this big ship called Gargantia. It's like a giant village ship that they're all just kind of living together on a colony and trying to survive, and they help each other out and pick up after each other and everything. And it's it's nice and quaint and etc. And so he's talking with these human characters, and one of the devices of the show that I really enjoyed was the fact that there's a language barrier. So he uses the AI of his giant mech suit thing to translate, because he can't actually speak human language. So there's a lot of that back and forth, and it makes for some kind of funny moments. And and then from there on out, he's kind of in that, I guess, sort of Little Mermaid state of like, oh, like what is this about human life and etc. And not so much like not so much in like a goofy kind of way. He takes it a little more seriously, because he's kind of he's like a soldier. He's like a very serious kind of guy. But the way it's presented is very cute and very relatable and fun. In a way, it's kind of like a more serious version of, in some ways, to like Jaka the Galactic Patrolman, which was Toriyama's recent new manga. There's no language barrier in Jaka, obviously, but similar in terms of like I'm an alien, I don't get these things, kind of deal. So that was really cool. And so again, I don't have any attachment to these characters going in. I just started watching the show, and I was instantly enjoying that. And what I kind of determined is just it's a catch-all, like very easily relatable kind of thing of when you see, fantastical, like crazy, weird characters like an Alien or like stuff like the Avengers. Because again, I explained what all them are and everything. There's just automatically a connection, because it's so like it's so likable and relatable. It's like, oh yeah, I've had a moment like that in my life, that you just instantly have a connection to. So then I started thinking about how this sort of mentality applies to my own stuff, because I didn't have a complete answer. I felt like for why is this so effective? Beyond just that, it's relatable, it's likable. What is it about it that is so resonating with people, especially today? It just seems like that is becoming a thing that's really like well liked by consumers, I guess you could say. That sounds very business-like, I guess, but I mean, I count myself as that too, because I really enjoy it. I think it's one of the reasons why I like Steven Universe as well, in that same kind of way, where I was talking with a friend of mine recently, and he watches Steven Universe, but he doesn't really like it, and he was trying to ask me to describe why it is that I liked it, and I felt bad because I didn't really have a full explanation. Like, I was talking about how, it's what I described to him about that, and by the way, on a side note, yes, I will be doing an actual Steven Universe Kirblog at some point, but I'm just bringing it up here for a point. I was talking about how it's the show on Cartoon Network right now that makes me laugh the most, and it's because I have such an attachment to the characters that when something funny or out there or whatever, happens to them, like that connection makes me much more attached and therefore much more prone to laugh, as opposed to just some funny gag on regular show or Adventure Time, which not to say that I don't love those shows too, of course, but in terms of my actual ties to the characters themselves. And it was the same thing. I didn't have years and years of history. Again, like the Avengers example, it was just a matter of I followed the show from the beginning. I got to know the characters. I grew to really love them a lot. And then, when the later ones happened, and like the Stevani one was making me crack up, and the one where Steven's explaining what happened with Peridot and Jasper to the cool kids that he's driving with out into the road and everything. And, and I think it was, now that I really think about it later, because I felt bad that I couldn't describe it, because that made my defense to it kind of weak in that conversation, I guess. But something that I realized later is I think, because it is just so kind of grounded and down to earth and everything, literally in some cases, that is what makes the character so likable, and that is what makes it so relatable when they do focus on, just Steven, growing up and having, kind of a normal day-to-day kind of thing. Because my friend had pointed out, sometimes episodes would start off with Steven just kind of hanging around doing whatever, and then the crystal gems would come back and they'd be like, oh, we just got back from fighting some giant alien or whatever. And Steven will be like, oh, I wanted to join or whatever. And then my friend points out, yeah, can we see that? I would like to see the battle with the giant monster or whatever. And which is totally a valid criticism, I guess you could say. But at the same time, I'm not so focused on that, because I am thoroughly entertained by just, hey, Steven wants to do this and that, and he wants to solve this mystery in this lighthouse, or read this book with Connie or whatever. They set the framework up in a way that is keeping my attention, and it's because I find that type of stuff entertaining. And I'm obviously not the only one, because that show in and of itself has a massive following, and it took a little while before it amassed it, but you look at how huge it is now; it's kind of incredible. And so anyway, but I tried to apply that whole deal to my own work. And so I thought about tone and what specific moments that not only I really enjoy that from the whole story that I've managed to tell so far, but more importantly, in some aspects, what are the viewers' favorite moments? And it came down to the same kind of thing. Moments like when Alpha and the others are kind of hanging out, they're waiting for the Shadow Guard idol to crack open so they can fight the boss, and they're talking about, wanting to maybe see if they can meet up with each other in real life, which of course they talk about later in season 2. The moment where Nihilok breaks character when he's talking to GC, those are, even though there's a lot of crazy, I guess not supernatural kind of stuff, but I guess more sci-fi esque kind of things happening with the forbidden power and all that, and all these crazy desperate sort of things that go on with the characters and everything. Despite that, the standout moments more than anything are those moments, those very hey, everybody's just kind of hanging out. Hey, even again, I'm thinking more examples. Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods. Part of why I love that movie so much is there's a whole bunch of stuff of just the characters hanging out and doing fun stuff, and then obviously they they don't these types of things don't get away from the fact that they're like action shows or action movies or whatever. They still have like all of that stuff built in there, or else it wouldn't be the same product anymore, I guess you could say. Part of the reason why I'm also thinking about this so heavily now is because I'm trying to think of how to apply it to future things that I'm doing. In particular, for those of you who don't know about Balancing Act, the basic kind of premise of that is following a bunch of dudes who are trying to make like a makeshift superhero team. Well, not trying to make a makeshift one, but it just inherently is, because they don't have proper resources and everything. And I have a script for a feature film on that, but I'm kind of trying to reanalyze it and really get down to like what it is that I'm trying to say about it, like the real kind of theme behind it. Because I've talked about that before, like hidden themes with things, and how I feel like that has to kind of be at the forefront. I mentioned that on the Ultron review as well. But yeah, basically, because I over the many past years, I've had a lot of thoughts about, wouldn't it be funny to have a little moment like this where the characters are just sitting around talking about this or doing this menial task or whatever. I have so many different like little whatever ideas like that pop up all the time for specifically the Balancing Act characters. And I think about like, can I integrate that into the movie? Or back when I wanted to do it as a series, I was thinking about, what episode could I toss that into, or where could I put this and that and everything. And I'm trying to think about like, how to, funnily enough, balance that out with, again, the main kind of focus of it and everything, and, to split that up between some of the more actiony shit, because of course there's still like fights and some actions and everything. But because I feel like then if those kind of if those kind of moments rule the entire story, then it's like, you're not really telling the story, you're just showing a bunch of moments. And then that can be like, then there's this kind of nothing to it, because it's just like, well, then there's no attachment to be had in the first place. You have to, create a framework that is interesting and keeping people's attention. So I feel like those moments, like even the Avengers one I was bringing up at the beginning, like those I think are well balanced out, because they're also accompanied by something bigger that puts them into a proper context. It's like, okay, or like Persona. I just had Ivy and Sarashu from Steven Universe, ironically enough. I had them over my house this week, and Sarashu was talking to me about the Persona series, which I've never played, but I've always kind of admired from afar. He was telling me about, all I've ever seen is like the first couple episodes of the anime, which I watched with Martin before. He was talking about like the whole deal with that, and how like there is all this supernatural stuff, and like by the end of it becomes this like, whoa, like end of the world, we got to save everybody kind of story. There's still things like, hey, you can get to form a relationship with somebody, you can date the other characters, you have to still go to school, and you got to worry about your grades and everything. Like those kind of things, I think, because of the fact that like they're accompanied by a grander scheme type of scenario or whatever, that it puts those things into perspective, and it even makes you like appreciate them a little bit more. It's like, I still got to save the world by dinner time, but I have to be home by dinner time, to save face with my family or something. It puts those things into perspective of like, maybe I take for granted the fact that like I can have dinner with my family, and I can go to school, and I have a normal life. Like maybe it's because of that like it just makes those kind of things that much more enjoyable, like in perspective. I guess I just kind of discovered that answer while talking about this. I was worried I was getting a little too like ring around the rosy with this, but so I've just been kind of thinking about that stuff in general. It's been coming up a lot more in a lot of the media that I've been I guess consuming for the last couple of years or so, and I was trying to find some of the finer points within that, and really like figure out what it is. About, again, these moments, these kind of usage of these more human things that is so effective, and like how I can also try to use them more in the future. Because I am glad that I've managed to kind of hit those kind of points already in some parts throughout Tome. And those just kind of came from like just naturally. Like I was like, I want to write something like this, and then it turned out to be enjoyable. I mean, the whole scene where Alpha and everybody are just kind of hanging out and talking around the statue, that was actually one of the first scenes that I ever wrote for the entire show. And then it never ended up in an episode originally. And then when we added episode 4, I tossed that in there because there was an appropriate place for it. And I was like, oh, perfect. And then that ended up being like not only one of the fan favorite episodes, but a fan favorite moment, and still one of my favorite moments of the entire story so far. So I think that's kind of the end for now, but this is one that I'm really more so than usual curious for feedback on, because I guess if any other like artists or animators or anything hear this one, I'm curious as to like maybe how you see this. Like if you consider yourself a storyteller, or any writers that might be listening to this, or just any people in general. Like I'm curious for a lot of different kind of perspectives on like why you guys think that this sort of thing is so effective. In addition, what are some of your favorite moments like this? What, fantastic characters doing normal humanistic kind of things in shows, movies, games, whatever. I'm really curious. I want to know like. I'm not going to make the Tarzan joke for the millionth time. I want to know like more perspectives on this, because I want to determine a more solid answer than just kind of what I've figured out on my own. I'm really curious to study about this, because the stories that I want to tell are more centered around like the study of I guess humans interacting with each other more so than anything else. So yeah, tell me, like I'm really curious about that, and I want to see how I can apply it to future stuff that I might be able to do down the line. So yeah, leave me some feedback. Let me know your thoughts about this whole subject and anything else you want to add to this. I might respond to some comments and find some further points here. But yeah, thank you for listening otherwise. And I guess in general, if you have any other ideas for future Kirblog topics, leave a comment about that too. Or you can hit me up on Twitter, Tumblr, Facebook, etc., whatever you feel like. And that'll do it. So thank you again for listening, and I'll catch you all next time. Bye-bye.